Everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at Nvidia. Nvidia is now worth more than Amazon and Alphabet. Nvidia leads in the AI chip race to make it the fourth most valuable company in the world. Nvidia surpassed Alphabet in market capitalization on Wednesday, only a day after it overtook Amazon. These are wild times. These are really wild times. So it's a great time to be an investor in Nvidia, but it's a terrible time to not be an investor in Nvidia. So Bloomberg is reporting that the chip market stock is now worth 1.83 trillion, beating the Google owners 1.82 trillion market cap by a hair. This makes Nvidia the world's fourth most valuable company in the world in the wake of AI boom, after Microsoft $3 trillion. Yes, Microsoft is worth an incredible amount. I mean, it's absolutely crazy when you think about how much Microsoft is worth. The amazing thing is that Bill Gates has always wanted Warren Buffett to invest in his company, and Warren Buffett has consistently said no. I don't know. For some reason, it probably just wasn't something for Warren Buffett to invest in. The interesting thing is that he invested in Apple, but he didn't invest in Microsoft. It's very interesting because one would argue they're both technological company. They both have a moat. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Now, Apple is currently at 2.84 trillion and Saudi Aramco. The company is currently making its H100 chip, which powers the majority of LLMs in the use today, including OpenAI's ChatGPT and the majority of AI projects from Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon. But what about Apple? Is Apple using Nvidia products as well? It's hard to say. Maybe they'll start in that area because we know they're involved in machine learning. They've said so, but they don't want to call it AI. It's the same thing. But of course, we know that Apple likes to be an individual. They don't like to follow the crowd, follow the herd. That's not their thing. And it's one of the reasons I like Apple. They like to do things with an improvement compared to every other company. So the world's largest tech companies are involved in AI chip arms race, with each of them hoping to create their own GPU chip to topple Nvidia's virtual monopoly. Ironically, Bloomsbury note Nvidia's top sale of AI chips come from those same companies. The Santa Clara-based firm is close to releasing a super AI chip, their H200, which has more memory capacity and bandwidth than its predecessors. So earlier this month, Reuters reported that Nvidia had invested 30 billion into a unit devoted to helping other companies to make their own AI chips, meaning even if your companies opt to build their own AI chips, even if companies opted to build their own AI chips, Nvidia could get a piece of that. Meaning companies like Apple, they definitely want to build their own AI chips. It's one of the reasons that Apple introduced Apple Silicon. They wanted to go away from relying on Intel and other companies. They wanted to build their own chips, their own processors. They wanted to build their own hardware. That's what Apple is. Apple is becoming a company that doesn't just build technology, software. They want to build their own hardware. And it's completely genius because you're less reliant on companies like Nvidia, Intel. But there are some companies who will continue to be reliant on these companies. Meta, Amazon, Google, they'll continue to be reliant on these companies. I don't know about Microsoft. Microsoft is currently relying on Nvidia, but for how long? So there are some direct competitors to Nvidia. Intel, AMD are working on their own powerful chips that could rival the H200. So if anything, these industries are going to get even more valuable. Now here's the kicker. How undervalued is Intel? Intel is extremely undervalued at the moment. And if they're really working on a competitor to the H200 chip by Nvidia, that's such a fantastic thing because Nvidia does have the advantage right now, but for how long? As this war heats up, this is not going to slow down. Companies that are already ordering from Nvidia most likely will continue ordering from Nvidia because they're already integrated with Nvidia. I'm not saying that AMD, Intel can't get a piece of the action. Of course they will. But Nvidia will continue to have the edge for a while. This is good for investors such as myself. Not financial advice, is just my opinion. This gives me time to invest in companies like Intel. I don't know about AMD though. I don't know if AMD is a public company. Let's find out. They are a public company. $173. Now, despite Intel being undervalued in my opinion, the company's market cap is still huge. It's 183 billion, but you can see Nvidia is now at 180 something trillion. Remarkable. But I think this gives a lot of room for growth for Intel. Intel has been a king for a very long time, and it was briefly fallen, and it fell to a low price. Remember February last year, the stock was as cheap as $25 per share. Now it's $43 per share. In the last year, it has been on the rise. In fact, it's risen more than 57% in the last year. I have various reasons to believe that this company is definitely undervalued, despite the fact that, of course, the price has been rising once again. Taking a look at the revenue, it did started to fall briefly, just around the start of 2022. It started to fall on a quarterly earnings basis. Revenue started to fall, and in the early parts of 2023, it fell as low as 11.7 billion in revenue on a quarterly basis. And that was the first quarter of 2023, while the first quarter of 2022 was 18.3 billion. So essentially it lost like 7 or 6 billion in one quarter alone on a yearly basis. But there has been a slight recovery. The road to recovery for Intel has been rapid. And in fact, last year, the last quarter, it reported 15.4 billion in revenue. The earnings before interest and tax has been affected in the last few years because of the incredible competition by Nvidia. But once again, they have been increasing this in the latter parts of 2023. Free cash flow has been affected big time. It wasn't affected before. Prior to 2021, free cash flow was great for Intel. But recently, in the last couple of years, 2022, 2023, it's really been affected by a lot. And I'm looking at the charts here, and it's absolutely incredible just to realize this. Now, how about AMD? AMD, very interesting one. Market cap 280 billion. And it was also affected, in my opinion. Since the latter parts of 2021, it was starting to fall in 2022. And it fell as low as $57. Now it's $173. So in the last year, it's done incredibly well. 121% growth within the last year, within the last 12 months. Absolutely incredible. So now we want to look at the revenue. Let's see what it's doing. Okay, now this is quite interesting. In terms of revenue, it's not even competitive in comparison to Intel, yet the company is more valuable. This leads me to believe that Intel is incredibly undervalued. Although, looking at the data, the earnings before interest and tax were less affected compared to Intel. The free cash flow was also less affected. Still affected, don't get me wrong, it was still affected in a huge way. But it was definitely not in the negative. Same thing with the earnings before interest and tax. It was affected, but it started to recover, especially in the later parts of 2023. It started to recover in an incredible wave. But you can see the earnings on a quarterly basis, it's nowhere close to Intel. So in Q1 last year, they earned 5.3 billion, Q2 5.3 billion, Q3 5.8 billion, and Q4 last year 6.17 billion. Compare that with Intel, who earned last year in Q1 11.7 billion, 12.9 billion in the second quarter, third quarter 14.16 billion, and in the fourth quarter 15.4 billion. So Intel is both undervalued and it's earning more money than AMD. But you can see the free cash flow is negative. The earnings before interest is recovering. It was negative in the last quarter of 2022, but it's been recovering nicely. But it still leads me to believe that this company is undervalued, considering that they're working on the same technology that Nvidia is working on. They will catch up Nvidia eventually. They will catch them up. And these companies will eventually join Nvidia if they do as well as Nvidia. But can they do as well as Nvidia? They don't offer the same thing. For the longest time, Intel has been a processor company. They've offered processors. Nvidia was known for graphics card. Then they started offering a host of other products, and products that were really needed for AI, products that were really needed for crypto mining, products that were really needed for software, for hardware in electric vehicles, which will continue to grow. So I expect all these companies to continue to grow. Intel, Nvidia, and AMD. As AMD and Intel develop their own technology to compete with Nvidia, I expect them to continue growing. Let's take a look at Nvidia's revenue. This will be quite interesting, comparing that with, of course, Intel's. And I've said it before, Perhaps Nvidia is, and I've said this before, perhaps Nvidia is overvalued. Let's look at the quarterly earnings. It's absolutely exploded. There's no secret to that. Can they sustain this? First quarter last year, 7.19 billion. Second quarter, 13.5 billion. Third quarter, 18.12 billion. So fourth quarter, we're expecting over 20 billion for Nvidia. So we're looking at a company that could realistically make anywhere from 70 to 100 billion next year in revenue, if not more. That's what we're looking at. If they can sustain this growth, they've got growth right now, but can they sustain this? If they sustain this, we're looking at an incredible amount of growth for this company. But at the moment, before Q3 last year, in terms of earnings, does it make a lot of sense for the amount this company is valued at? 1.79 trillion. Does it make full sense? Is it overvalued? It might be. Only time will tell us if this company is truly overvalued. Will the market continue to grow at this rapid rate? Can they guarantee that there will always be this amount of orders to sustain Nvidia's growth? There will be orders, but can it sustain this growth? There's no guarantee. So I'm still in a mindset that this company might be overvalued, while Intel is a little bit undervalued, and AMD is probably somewhere between overvalue and fair price. But that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. What's going to happen with these companies? Absolutely crazy, but I love it. I love it. See you in the next one. Peace.